This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. It's all about our stories, our pathway that we go through in life. And my guest today is Roman Fisher. And, Roman, doesn't make any difference what the age difference is between people, because the reality of it is, when we're all little children, we have this view of, this is who I'm going to be, and this is how I'm going to get there.
Right.
And maybe sometime around junior high, high school, well, maybe that profession or idea isn't so cool, so we sort of make changes. And we seem to keep making these changes as we go through life. But that's okay. Just don't get stuck in the maze. Look around,
Right.
make your choices. And as I read your bio, you talked about your grandfather was a great influence on you. So let's talk about that, because a lot of young people don't want to admit that father, grandfather, great-grandfather was their motivation.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that is, a huge case and a huge factor for a lot of people out there in the world. For me, what really made him, a huge, inspiration and someone that was a huge role model to me was really just me seeing myself in him. I was never, a military guy like he was, but I was very much just, I don't know, the energy between him and I just really worked pretty well. And yeah, we got along. And every time we would get together, because he would actually be living in Wisconsin, I was living in Arkansas, still am right now, but we would always get together once or twice a year for, family reunions, and just to meet up at like Branson and some other places too.
Sure.
And we just connected. It was really cool just getting to see my grandpa and just exchange, conversation about what's all happened throughout the
Sure.
year, anything good, anything bad, and anything in between. But yeah, he was just always someone that I just looked up to naturally. And it was really cool just always being around someone that you could connect with, especially in family. That's
Right.
very, very important. So having that, in a sense, father figure, but just as a grandpa, that's really what he was to me. It was really neat and really precious, I
And
would
even
say
though
even.
he lived that far away from you and you were only seeing each other physically once or twice a year, he still had that effect on you. And,
Yeah.
the funny part is that so many of us are living away from family. And for some, it just doesn't work. Getting together once or twice a year, they still feel like strangers. But it takes
Yeah.
a special person to have you gravitate towards them as if you just saw them yesterday and you want to continue sharing your story.
Definitely. Yeah, that's something that was really cool and really neat about my grandpa. Just the energy. I know it sounds very cliche, maybe a little odd for some people, but yeah, the energy between him and I just always really matched well. And yeah, we just always responded well to each other's, presence. And yeah, we always had really good conversations about anything. And I remembered always going to his house, and he always had, trains. And because I actually grew up with Thomas the Tank Engine.
Oh, I
And that,
remember Thomas. Yes.
yeah, that was my huge, a go-to show, especially as a kid. And that was something that he didn't have, like, those trains, but he had just regular trains. And that always really captivated me as a kid. And then just seeing that in his house, and he had a huge, basement just full of trains. It was really cool. He was really big into like cars, mechanical type stuff, and trains as well. So just seeing that as a kid and then growing up around that when I would visit him, that really also
Absolutely.
had a huge, huge effect on me.
Well, you just brought some memories back to me, because my youngest son, who now is living in Texas, he also grew up with Thomas the Tank Engine.
Oh,
I
wow.
think he had the whole family of Thomas the Tank Engines.
Nice.
And I remember, I think it was when he was a senior in high school, we were moving, and he packed up all of his Brio and Thomas, and he said, "Do not touch this because someday I may want it for my kids."
Yeah.
I'm not sure he's going to have kids at this point, but at the same time, it's still packed away. And every time I hear about Thomas, great memories, so I can understand.
Oh
So
yeah.
you say your grandfather influenced you to do what you're doing today. So talk to us about what is it that you're doing and why?
Yeah. So currently what I'm just all about right now, what I'm doing in my life is just helping people, not just helping myself, but really helping people transform their overall minds and bodies and just improving their overall confidence, energy, sleep, and just happiness even throughout their day. So that's been a huge thing in my life right now. Very, very much, monumental in what I do from day to day. And it really impacts me in a really, positive way because not just helping myself, but sharing that same help for other people. That's even more fascinating and really even more rewarding, if you will. So that's been great. But yeah, my grandpa, though, he was the one that, not the only factor, but he was one of the main primary driving forces or factors that got me into what I do today. Yeah, he, being around him all that time, that was great. But then sadly, came a time, and this happens for a lot of people throughout their life. Of course, it is part of life, but seeing him just pass away just due to cancer, that was rough, just thinking about it, talking about it even right now is rough. In a way, it's really it's rough, it's one of those things you'll never really fully get over,
Absolutely.
to be honest. But while that was indeed, in fact, tough for me to actually cope with, handle, and deal with, it also at the same time, not instantly, of course, but I would say about a few weeks, maybe a month after, it really lit a fire inside of me to want to, better my health even. I wasn't super, super unhealthy, but I wasn't really that healthy either. So seeing, you know, him pass away due to cancer, because he was, military, so he used to take care of his body quite a bit. But as he got older, he kind of let himself go, so to speak. And with that being said, he started experiencing some health issues and health problems, and that eventually met his unfortunate, death. But
Absolutely.
that was tough. But seeing that though, I was like, okay, this is hard. It put me in a, very deep, dark depression, but I'm not going to let this stop me forever. I will know that it's difficult and always will be, but I'm going to change my life. I'm going to shift my life for the better. I'm going to use this, sad, depressing event, and I'm going to put it, in my favor. I'm going to use it as fuel for fire to actually change my life, transform my life and my health as a whole, and then help people, do that as well. Because
Right.
as I started getting into fitness and like weightlifting, eating healthier, even going towards more organic foods, even as I started doing more of that and cutting out the sugars and the artificial colors with all the candies out there, I
Right.
started really experiencing a huge shift in energy and confidence and motivation, and also the endorphin increase that I would have in my body, just all the endorphins that got increased from the exercise. That just really gave me a good addiction, if you will. So instead of those bad addictions that
Right.
most people
Exactly.
come across, it was a good, healthy addiction. And most people think of, addiction as a negative term or a negative word. And oftentimes it is. But in this case, it was not.
Yeah.
It was a
Right.
really great thing, that I was, practicing from day in and day out. And then upon that, I just wanted to share that same addiction, if you will, with all the other people around me, starting with the people I knew and loved. And then from there, I wanted to just really go from one body at a time to the rest of the world and change the rest of the world. So basically,
Absolutely.
be Superman in fitness.
The interesting part is, as I'm listening to you, it took me a long time to get to knowing that I should take care of myself. I mean, I knew it, but I was a wife, I was a mother, I was working, and so made a lot of excuses. Hey, I just can't
Yeah.
do it now. But I was encouraging others to do it. And then it just dawned on me, wait a second, it doesn't have to be that difficult. Exercise doesn't mean I have to spend an hour every day in the gym lifting weights, okay, or doing sit-ups,
Yeah.
but keeping yourself active, finding something that works for you, okay, instead of reading about all these diets and exercise and
Oh
trying
yeah.
out, but make sure that you can do it for you. And
Exactly.
uh, I know when I started coaching, I started, sharing with people, maybe you want to, have that certain physique, but what do you want to put into it to get it? It's not going to happen overnight. So what are you willing to do? And just don't do it for 6 months or a year, because
Yeah.
it's going to go away when you stop. It's got to be something that you do daily. And,
Oh yeah.
but it can't be a chore. So prior to you doing this, were you working out? Were you athletic? Uh, were you eating 3 good meals a day, or were you doing a little bit of everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, at that point in my life, I was not really too healthy. I wasn't like super unhealthy at that point when he passed away. I was trying to make more of an effort to be a little more healthy, but after he passed away, that really, really did impact me and made me really just want to go all in and all out with my health. So at that time, I was working out some and eating a little healthy, but I was doing a little bit of everything. I would work out a little bit, stop working out, and then I would just go from one meal, sometimes have a little, fast food or cheap meal. And I just really want to be balanced, if you will, not consistent. And yeah, I just wouldn't have that. I would have the motivation, but then lose that motivation and then not have that consistency. And there's a good quote too that I've recently heard, motivation gets you going, but consistency, keeps you growing. And that's
Yeah,
that's really what I practice now. Of course, getting that motivation, but now getting that consistency to back it up. Because if you don't have that consistency, just like you were saying, you will ultimately fall off.
absolutely. A year ago, I joined a group and went through a training program called um, Personal Intelligence. And in the beginning, the way the course was going, I loved the information, but I just couldn't do it the way the course was structured. But I was afraid to say anything to the group because I thought, oh, nobody else is complaining. What's wrong with me? But I started picking up on the information, and I finally said in one of our group meetings, hey, everybody, I don't do this daily the way they're asking us to, but I'm noticing things daily that I shouldn't do. And I'm taking that path to do things better. And I remember the coach said, well, congratulations, because that's what the program is about. You don't have to get up every day and, do the exact same thing, because every day is not going to be the same. But you have to be aware of the things that block you and
Oh
aware of
yeah.
the things that help you move forward. And I've been battling on and off with it for the last year. But in the last 30 days, I've realized, hey, I stop myself in the middle of something and go, whoa, this isn't the way I want it to go the rest of the day.
Exactly.
Can I change it? And if I can, you know, that's what I do. And it's not hard, but we just have to be more aware. And I think sometimes we walk around in a fog.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have a mentor that actually always would say too that repeat successful actions, don't always be consistent with everything, but if it's working, just keep going. Just keep going with
Exactly.
that.
Yep, absolutely. So, where do you get your clients from? How do they find out who you are? Because, that's tough for many of us. So many of us
Yeah.
are coaching, And people will say to me, well, why are you a better coach than somebody else? And my comment always is, I'm not better. I'm
Yeah.
just one of many. So
Yeah.
how do they find you?
Yeah, definitely. So for the most part, it's all just done virtually or online. And what I do is a few things really. So from current clients, I'll get sometimes referrals. So that's one huge way of
Sure.
growing any business, but that's how I help grow my business. On top of that, I also scale my business in other ways with posting reels because that is huge for traction and growth, not just with followers and likes and comments but also shares and eventual potential clients.
Sure.
So that's another way of doing that. And then on top of that, too, it's just sometimes, warm messaging with some people I know or cold messaging, and just building rapport from there. And then eventually just figuring out what their goals are, what their struggles, and everything they've tried to achieve their goals.
Yeah.
From there, I usually book a call with them if they're available and then just walk through just the process of how I could help them.
And so many of us, either we're very aware of what we're doing wrong, but we don't want to admit that to anybody else. Okay. I know the first time I contacted a coach, I noticed they were very quiet on the other end. And it made me quiet and they kept waiting for me to tell them, why am I contacting them? What is it that I want? And I didn't
Yeah.
understand that at first. And it took the second call to that same coach. And I came out and I said, why aren't you asking me questions? And they said, no, I'm here to guide you through it. Okay. If I can ask you some questions, but the reality of it is I need to know what's going on deep inside of you. And
Yeah.
it may hurt to get that out, but then you're going to have some relief. And I had a call like that the other day with a potential client who I had to say to them, I'm going to give you some other referrals because what they needed was so close to what I knew I couldn't give them. And I admitted that my coaching is based on my experiences. And I think that's the best thing that you can do for an individual. So
Oh, yeah.
that's what you've done. You decide to eat healthier. You decide to do other things that make you a better person. And so now you share and guide through that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Cause there's a lot of, lost people out there, sadly, in the world and in a lot of different ways, but especially with their health. And sadly, if you're lost and confused and stuck with your health, that's probably one of the biggest, I would say, really the biggest issue you could be stuck with. And that's something you have to, overcome and improve as best as you can, as quick as you can, because health is wealth. Like, no matter how much money you have in your bank account, no matter how many cars you have, what you drive and where you live, it doesn't fully matter if your health isn't even in check in the first place.
You
So
are
just
so
getting
right.
that right is always key.
Well, in 9 weeks ago, when I had my fall and I spent 4 days flat on my back on a hospital bed, um, doctors and nurses would come in constantly, what's your problem? And be like, well, if you'd read my chart, you'd know. But
Yeah.
I was trying so hard to move the left side of my body. And my left side was it was painful. It was fatigued.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get my brain to say, power through the pain. And as I laid there, I realized this is not the way I'm going to spend the rest of my life. And they would come in and they'd say, well, there's really nothing wrong. It's badly bruised. We're going to try to get you up. And I couldn't get up. So after 4 days, I went to a rehab center. I'll tell you what a difference because they became my coaches. It was,
Nice.
what do you want to do? How soon do you want to be able to get out of this bed? How soon do you want to be able to sit in that chair? How soon do you want to be able to get to the bathroom on your own? And it was like, oh, thank you. You see it. And some of my goals were very lofty. Okay. It was like, well, I just want to get out of bed and walk to the bathroom right now. And they said, well, that's not going to happen. But we're going to show you how it will happen. And within 24 hours, I was using a walker. Within 48 hours, I was using a cane. And when I look back at it, if my attitude had not been positive as I laid in that hospital bed, if I would have accepted the fact, you know what, it's a very bad bruise, it may never get any better, I may be in pain the rest of my life. Yeah, I probably would have been. But I knew
Yeah.
that, hey, I'm not done. I need to get up and get moving. And because of my injury, yes, I was very lucky that I could do that. There are going to be some injuries or illnesses, as you've discussed, that may not be that quick, or you may not get that type of recovery. There's always something you can get that's going to make you feel better.
Oh yeah. And really it's crazy, but mindset just all ties around this and ties into this just perfectly. I mean, they even have done studies. It's crazy to really hear this, but they've done studies where they have actually had like two plants and one person spoke positive, things and positive words into that plant. That plant actually, grew. The other plant, they, spoke the opposite. They spoke negative stuff into that plant and negative thoughts and negative words. And then that plant slowly began to die. And what's crazy is both of these plants were actually watered the same way too. That's it's nuts. I mean, it does sound very, kind of fake, I guess, like very, fictional, but it's true, there is power in what we think and what we say and what we ultimately do. Because what we do and how we actually recover with anything, fitness or not, that all just boils back down to what we're thinking and saying before we can
Absolutely.
actually do anything after.
And the reality of it is, I'm sure even for yourself, you have those times too when those negative thoughts about anything can come into your head. But it's about being aware of, okay, why am I thinking this way? You know, can I change my trajectory? Um, I know that for a long time when I would get down, it felt like a comfort zone. Oh, it's okay because I can go, lay in bed in a fetal position and have nobody bother me. But the funny part was, I realized that as soon as I would go do that, the first 5 minutes, I was okay. By minute 6 or 7, it was like, I'm wasting my life. What am I
Yeah.
doing? Um, it's not like I needed the rest. Okay. I didn't really need to hide away. It was like, okay, so I made a mistake. How do I change that mistake? Um, and I think if most of us could grow up understanding that mistakes actually make us smarter if
Yeah.
we understand them.
Exactly. And it's crazy. I actually shared a recent reel just not too long ago, maybe a few days ago, that there's no bad days, only learning days. So
I
even
like
if a day does not go fully as planned and isn't quote unquote perfect or good, we can always learn something from it. So even if that day wasn't just, even if it didn't go according to plan, we always at least learn something from it. So we come out even, at least either way. So
yeah,
that's what's really neat.
yeah. Well, I tend to be my husband's coach. He works in IT and he's working for a company that they don't want to invest any money, but they want him to fix everything.
Oh,
And
wow.
so there will be days that he'll call me and he'll go, okay, just please be my sounding board. And I'll listen. And some of the things I'll say to him is, okay, um, do you want to invest your money to get the tools you need? And some days he'll say, yeah, that's where I was really going. Well, if it's going to make you more productive, not complain, be able to get it done, it's probably worth it. There are other days he'll call me and he'll go, the tools I'm going to need for this, it's going to cost me a couple of $1,000. I don't want to do that. And I'll say to him, okay, what can you do differently? And he's not used to that kind of brainstorming, but he's getting so much better at it because he'll go,
Yeah.
you know what? I can complain all I want, but sometimes I'm at a limit, and I
Yeah.
just have to look at that limit and go, hey, I succeeded. I got to my limit. And it's helping the two of us. We've been married 39 years. And when we get into an argument, we usually walk away. And within
Nice.
minutes, we come back and we go, okay, what did we learn from that? And it's not necessarily saying, hey, I'm sorry I made a mistake. It's what I learned is I can do something different the next time.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, always good to learn from, your past experiences and mistakes, especially because from there, if you can really learn from it, you shouldn't really make that mistake again. And if you can avoid making that mistake, that's huge. That's everything.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you're in Arkansas, but you also mentioned California. Are you moving to California, or is that just a vacation?
Oh, just kind of like a vacation.
Oh, okay, okay. But actually, the work you do, you could do anywhere because it is virtual and you are
Oh yeah.
making reels. Um, if somebody had the, I guess I'm going to say willpower to do what you're doing, what would you recommend for them to start? Because I know I've had a number of people say to me, how'd you get started, podcasting? I said 10 years ago, I had an idea. I worked for a local internet radio station, got my feet wet. And then I came home one day and I said to my husband, this is what I want to do. And he looked at me
Nice.
like I was a little crazy. I
Yeah.
said, but my background was communications, and this was my way of getting the word out, of helping individuals. But I help myself when I do these. And I think that's important to share.
Always.
But if somebody wanted to do what you're doing, because you put a different type of effort into it, what are your words of wisdom?
Yeah. So especially when it comes to actually getting into fitness, always start, small. Just as with anything in life for the most part, start with small goals, break your, long-term, big, huge goals into smaller goals. That way it's easier to attain, it's less overwhelming, and it's a lot easier to stick to and not, give up on. So that consistency factor will be a lot stronger and your success rate will be a lot better that way. So first and foremost, just figure out, your why you want to do this, and then break those goals down into smaller ones. Then just go at those just one by one. That's the first step, I would say. Just figuring out why you want to do it and then just going all in, but just taking small steps, small gradual steps. Because most people, when they get into fitness, they get overwhelmed because they're like, I don't know what to do. I have this huge goal of losing 100 pounds, 50 pounds, 20 pounds, but they're like, I got to lose it all now. I got to lose it in the next month. And it's like, there's
Not
a
going to
couple
happen.
problems with that.
Yeah,
At least number one, that's a very, very short time frame to lose that much weight. Number two, that's just going to overwhelm you anyway, even if that is possible. And it's really not, at least not very in a healthy way.
right.
But it's also just going to overwhelm you anyway. And that's not what you want for your mental health. And that's just going to make it harder, again, to stay very consistent in that. So yeah, just figure out why you want to get in this and figure out why. Just find your why. And whatever you do in life, whatever you want to do in life, you got to find your why and your true meaning, your purpose behind that. That makes it a lot easier also to stick with it.
Well, it
Um,
makes it easier not to listen to the people around you who are saying, oh, a
yeah.
hundred other people are doing this. And I got that quite a bit,
Oh
well,
yeah.
come on, Karen, look at all these famous people who are doing podcasts. Who's going to listen to yours? In the beginning, I made a comment, and I still make it occasionally. I'm listening to it. And they would look at
That's
me like
good.
it was crazy. And I'd say, but I'm learning something with my guest. And when I even go out and do a reel, I'm sharing information that I have learned. And if one person hears it, I don't even have to know who they are. But if they hear it and they say, hey, that's something I can do, well, that's wonderful.
Oh
Because
yeah.
otherwise, I could sit here at home day in and day out and, not share anything. And, you know, I don't think that's good for me because I know what my why is, and my why is to help people find their why.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, and it sounds cliche, but one is better than none. So even if there's not hundreds of millions of people hearing, the message we're putting out, even if just one person hears that on a daily basis, even if it's that same person for a week, that's still monumental
Exactly.
because one person that can eventually lead to a domino effect and they can tell other people and so on and so forth.
I love it. I love it. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. But before we end, can you tell us how can my listeners find you and connect with you?
Definitely. So if you want to see more about like what I do and the people that I've transformed with their minds and bodies, all you got to do is go to my direct website, romanfisherofficial.com. And you can also find me and connect with me on Facebook or Instagram or even TikTok and YouTube. And my handle is Roman Fisher Official.
Well, we're going to make sure all that's in the show notes so that nobody has an excuse not to find you. Have a great time on the West Coast. It's going to be
Oh, yeah.
hot, but hey, it's already hot in Arkansas anyways, and
Yeah.
it's hot
Oh,
all
it
over.
is. At
Yeah.
least it's dry heat, though, with the ocean breeze
Oh,
coming
that's
in.
what they say. I don't know. I remember I lived in Minneapolis for the 4 years when I was going to high school. And, you think of Minnesota as being cold and snowy, but their
Yeah,
summer are hot and humid.
I
And,
bet.
everybody would say to me, how are you handling this? And to me, it was hot as hot. I don't care if
Yeah.
it's dry. I don't care if it's humid. It's going to be hot and my hair is going to frizz. So you take what you can.
Yeah, I
Again,
remember living in Arizona, obviously very dry out
right.
there, especially in Arizona, but it was hot, like 110,
Yep.
115 sometimes. My steering wheel couldn't even hardly touch it. That was nuts.
Well, in the meantime, stay well. We will get this all in the show notes. I will send you the links. And again, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Yes, likewise. Thanks for having me.
Bye bye now.
All right, bye.